One of the things I find most striking is the presence of Antarctica on ancient maps, because we didn't discover it until 1820, and yet it's on maps drawn in the 1500s with great detail. The so-called Pinkerton World Map, it just shows a hole where Antarctica is. Because it was an honest map. Nobody had found it by then. But if you go back to, for example, the Waldseemüller World Map drawn in 1530 or thereabouts, you find Antarctica is present. Orontius Phineus. Go for Orontius. Oronteus. Phineus. The Orontius Phineus map. That map shows Antarctica exactly where it should be. And it shows it, there we go, right-hand side. There's Antarctica at the tip of South America, just south of South Africa.
And what did they call it back then?
Well, they call it the Southern Land. And it's larger than it is today, but it was larger than it is today during the Ice Age. Antarctica was a much bigger. Now, what the fuck is it doing on a map drawn in the 1500s, which we know was based on older source maps when nobody knew it existed in the 1500s? To me, the obvious answer is we are dealing with the fingerprints of a lost civilization.
Godzilla is actually real, and someone just got video proof. The average person believes that Godzilla is just a story. However, a historian was tasked with finding the origins of Godzilla and found something truly disturbing. Gordon Clark, a historian, recognized that people believe Godzilla first appeared in a movie in 1954. However, he did some digging and found some texts dating back to the 1800s. He eventually found a text that claimed Godzilla was held in a cave called the Hall of Whispers. He spent months trying to figure out where this was and eventually achieved this. It was a region just above New York. He immediately explored this cave for hours and came across nothing. However, he saw massive mountains and decided to give it one more shot. After just 5 minutes of moving toward the mountains, Clark was astonished. There was a cave opening with a sign written in Old English. He entered the cave and began walking to find the creature. This is when Clark heard an ear-splitting roar, but was not fazed by this sound. But then, he discovered this 200-foot creature, chained down. As of yesterday, Clark released the video footage of Godzilla. If you're brave enough to see it, just press on the share icon, then on more, and then photos.
Whatever the Egyptians were doing, I think they were the most advanced civilization that ever existed. I don't think we can do what they did. The precision in which they built it, I really don't think we can do that. Just the symmetry of the faces of the statues is unparalleled, and they're immense. These are monstrously huge, perfectly symmetrical faces.
Right.
Their temples are insanely intricate.
They were incredibly advanced.
Incredibly advanced.
With math, with science, with technology.
Certainly with geometry. 20-ton gigantic stone blocks that were taken from a mountain 500 miles away. And no one has any idea how the fuck they got them.
Nobody has any clue.
No guesses.
Right.
There's some guesses about, oh, maybe the river system was different back then. Whatever. How are you getting that 50-ton chunk of granite out of a fucking mountain and moving it down, even with modern equipment? How are you getting it over the mountain?
Did you know that while Europe was stumbling through the Dark Ages, the Maya were performing brain surgery? Mind-blowing, right? Picture this. It's 900 AD. In Europe, they're using leeches for medicine. Meanwhile, the Maya are drilling into skulls with precision. It's called trepanation. They used sharp obsidian tools and antiseptic plants, and get this, they had a high survival rate. Imagine living back then, trusting your life to ancient surgeons who knew more about the brain than medieval Europe ever did. They used natural anesthetics like tobacco and hallucinogenic plants to ease the pain. But wait, there's more. The Maya had advanced dental practices too. They drilled teeth to insert precious stones and even perform fillings. And their knowledge of medicinal plants? Next level. They used treatments we're only rediscovering today. So, what do you think? Were the Maya more advanced than medieval Europe in medicine? Comment your thoughts. And if you're blown away by this, hit follow for more mind-bending history facts.
Do you know the truth about the Titanic disaster? On April 15, 1912, the illustrious ship sank after hitting an iceberg, leading to the loss of over 1,500 lives. But was it merely an accident? Some theorists argue that powerful figures had a hand in the tragedy, citing financial interests and rivalries. Theories suggest that J.P. Morgan, who owned the Titanic's parent company, planned the disaster to eliminate key opponents of the Federal Reserve, namely Jacob Astor, Benjamin Guggenheim, and Isidor Straus, all prominent figures who opposed its establishment. Details emerge about the ship's faulty design and inadequate safety measures, with some alleging that the Titanic's sister ship, the Olympic, was damaged and disguised as the Titanic to claim insurance money. Eyewitness accounts of a mysterious ship in the vicinity that night hint at a cover-up. As you dive into these narratives, consider the implications. Was the Titanic simply a tragic miscalculation? Or is there a more sinister undercurrent that challenges our understanding of history? Do you believe the official story, or is there something more lurking beneath the surface of this maritime disaster?
History of ancient America, founded upon the ruins of antiquity, the identity of the Aborigines with the people of Tyrus and Israel, and the introduction of Christianity by the Apostle St. Thomas, by George Jones, events of what led after that and how we decided to come over here to America. They would basically take the people out of that land, remove their name, remove their heritage, and basically implant different people into that land with the ancient Hebrews, because we were the ancient Hebrews. We already had these customs, right? We were, and why is that? That was because we are the lost 10 tribes of Israel.
Are we seeing evidence of giants everywhere and just continue to ignore it? Like this guy who just recently saw a giant peeking through and closing a stone door in some cliff rocks up in Oregon, and he's definitely not the first. Have a look at this. Petroglyph cave paintings all around the world, over 15,000 years old. Giants. Ancient Indian mythology had the Vedas beings, which were over 32 feet tall. In the Old Testament, we got the Nephilim, especially in the Book of Enoch. The Quran had the people of Ad, a nation of giants. Ancient Egyptians had their carvings and drawings of extremely large people in chairs and carrying megalithic stones. Mayans and Aztecs across the ocean in Central America had their own depictions of towering humans. And the Sumerians, well, they had the Anunnaki, winged beings 12 to 15 feet tall. And I promise that video's coming. That came down from the sky, bred with humans, and gave birth to giants. And this particular story formula here has been repeated in so many of these ancient civilizations' lore. And then we actually started finding them. Hundreds of skeletons of these supposed mythical giant creatures uncovered all over the world, most notably in North America. Found all over the US and even into Canada and Mexico, carbon dating analyses showed that these remains were much older than even the native indigenous people. And even these Native American tribes who had zero contact with the Egyptians and the Sumerians had their own legends of a time when enormous humans roamed the earth. Like the Choctaw tribe in present-day Mississippi had stories of the Nahulo, a race of giants that ate humans, another common characteristic among these stories. And there's the Native American myth from the Paiute tribe of red-haired giants called the Siteka that also ate humans, who according to legend were burned alive in Lovelock Cave, Nevada after a long battle. The cave was even excavated, and findings were published in 1929 that reported enormous handprints on the wall, Paleolithic artifacts, human bones with the marrow removed, which could be an indicator of cannibalism, a size 29 sandal, which would belong to someone at least 8 feet tall, massive clothing, and finally mummified remains of a female skeleton 7 feet tall and a male 9 feet tall were also found, both with red hair. Checkaroo, that sounds like giants to me. What's crazy is that's literally only the tip, so let me show you the whole shaft. 1833, a sarcophagus unearthed in Lompoc Rancho, California, 12 feet long with an intact skeleton inside. 1870, an article in the Oil City Times reported an 18-foot skeleton discovered in West Hickory, Pennsylvania. 1872, a New York Times report of giant skeletons with 2 rows of teeth found near Serpent Mound, Ohio. 1913, skulls of giant human skeletons that would have been 10 feet tall found in Ozark Caves, Arkansas. Esteemed professors like this guy, Thomas Wilson, who worked for the Smithsonian, even stated, the authenticity of these finds were beyond any doubt. But of course, do some Google debunking yourself and it'll tell you every one of these reports was a hoax. Yeah, because there were over 1,000 accounts of these giant remains found all over North America, and every single one of them was just a prank, right? I mean, they were actually finding skeletons in the ground and had tangible proof, so let's just take a look at the bones and we can lay this one to rest. The newspaper articles, journals, town histories, and such that outline these finds cite a common recipient of these remains, the Smithsonian, the world-leading museum education and research institution created by the good old US government. Groundbreaking discoveries about human history? Of course we can trust the government to tell us the truth. But actually, for the longest time, no one ever suspected any sketchy business from federal agencies until some sketchy business started happening. In 1892, more wooden coffins measuring up to 12 feet long were discovered in Crump's Cave, Alabama, and were sent to the Smithsonian as with everything else. More than 50 years went by and they never said anything about them. So in 1950, a researcher pulls out the good old Freedom of Information card and basically asks them, hey yo, where they at? Smithsonian hits him back with, our records show that we got them, but we can't seem to find it. Kinda like NASA overwriting the tapes of the original moon landing, huh? Then again, in 1992, another researcher asks, and finally, after 100 years since the original find, he's told that the coffins weren't coffins, but food troughs for feeding cattle from a time period in which animal domestication wasn't even practiced in North America. And when he asked if he could see it, they told him it was in a warehouse that was contaminated with asbestos for 10 years. Yeah, this is the real documented story, which they probably could have gotten away with if it wasn't for the good old internet. Hey, he tried as best as he can, right? So basically, the Smithsonian has all the bones, which are technically native cultural artifacts. But hey, I got some good news that could finally show us the actual truth once and for all. Back in 1990, the U.S. passed a law stating that federal agencies must return all native cultural artifacts back to their tribes upon request. Well, hot diggity dang, if that sounds too good to be true, it is. If you look into this act on the US government official website, a fine print subsection clause from the law itself explicitly states that the Smithsonian is exempt from this act. Man, it really don't get any more bait than that. This is some evil genius shit. If you don't know what to think of this, let me remind you of a famous quote from Ronald Reagan. The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government, and I'm here to help.
We are all dead. This shows all the conspiracies in the world, from the most well-known ones to the darkest of the dark. And as I'm sure you know, in this series we're going from the top to the bottom, so let's go. This is wild and will have you thinking for a long, long time. So it's scientifically proven that after death there is around 7 or 8 minutes of brain activity remaining. And a recent study has just been done which could suggest this happens for hours. Along with this, there's been the theory for years that life flashes before your eyes when you die. So here's the theory, and this is scary. So time is distorted when you're in dreams, right? Like a dream may actually only be about a minute, but feels to you when you're in it like an hour or 2 hours, even longer. So when you die, if your life does flash before your eyes, you'll relive all your memories in real time in that 7 or 8 minutes, but it actually feels to you like your entire life. So what if we are all dead, laying in a hospital now or whatever, and our life is flashing before our eyes right now and we're reliving all of our memories? Obviously there's things like, how the hell am I filming this video then? But, you know, I mean, it's pretty scary to think about. Hit that follow button, it's going to get even crazier.
The history we've all been taught is a massive lie. Before the civilization we have today, there was another civilization that's been hidden from us. The Tartarian Empire was a civilization that was far more advanced than us, but in a different way. They had harnessed the ability to use atmospheric energy. They incorporated it into all of the buildings and were able to create free energy for everyone at all times. They had also harnessed the power of frequencies and were able to build grand architecture by manipulating substances and moving huge rocks through vibration. Hence the Great Pyramids and many other unexplainable architectural anomalies that were created in the past. The free energy was a threat to the massive oil industry and all the profits they were able to generate from the scarcity of oil. So the owners of this industry, who were extremely powerful, created a plan to take out this civilization and wipe them from history so nobody would ever know about free energy, and they destroyed all their architecture and technology. They did their best to cover up any evidence that the Tartarians ever existed. So this is why...
Why doesn't anyone talk about this? Scientists have just discovered a gigantic ocean 430 miles beneath the Earth's surface. Let me break this down for you. They went down 430 miles in the ocean and found an ocean inside the ocean. Does this mean the Agartha theory is real? Just a quick recap. The Agartha theory is that there is a legendary city said to reside in the Earth's core. Because think about it, how can you find another ocean inside the ocean? Everything you knew about the oceans is wrong. The scientists said that you could take all 3 of our oceans, Atlantic, Pacific, and the Indian, and put them together, and this new ocean is still 3 times bigger. This is what you're probably thinking. So they got to the bottom of the ocean, and then the water ended, but they then find another ocean. This raises a few questions. How do you go 430 miles beneath the ocean? Does the water stop at some point? And now we get to the craziest part. And if there is water beneath the oceans, could that mean there is land beneath the surface?
Did you ever hear about the Grand Canyon theory?
No.
So the Grand Canyon, one of the world's wonders. There's a theory that the Grand Canyon holds something that none of us knew was there. So back in the 1850s, right? Yeah. The Grand Canyon was used to mine gold. When people started mining it, the gold index crashed because they found so much gold there. Okay. Now what happened was the government and the military, they closed it off and they made it a sanctuary so that nobody can just go there and then take whatever they want. There was this one guy, his name was Seth Tanner, and he was an explorer. He explored this one cave and he claims what he saw was ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics in one of the caves.
Oh, what did it say?
The Grand Canyon, it actually holds the lost city of El Dorado.
What?
Like, you know, the lost gold city of El Dorado.
Yeah, the whole city.
The whole city. So if you think about it, it's never found. That ancient tale that all of the natives talk about, the lost city, and the reason the government and the world is trying to keep it a secret is because it would crash the gold price.
Is the government hiding an entire civilization from us? The Tartarians were said to be a civilization that unlocked the key to free energy, allowing the Tartarians to advance exponentially, as citizens were allowed to express their creativity freely, without the stress of work, leading to many great inventions and grand architecture. However, a powerful organization that controlled the world through the cell of energy had already invested heavily into energy production and lobbied against Tartaria, as free energy will essentially take away all the control that they had. This organization tore Tartaria apart and erased them from our history books, making it seem like Tartaria never existed. But if you look carefully, the evidence of Tartaria is still there, in old maps, in architecture around the world that seemed to advance. Places like the Taj Mahal, the Great Wall of China, or even the pyramids in Egypt looked way too advanced to have been built by the respective nations, but collectively, all have similar themes in their design, similar themes aimed at harvesting energy. So